Hello, welcome back to another breaking news update. My name is Jimmy Boyd, and you were watching Boyd News. I want to thank you so much for tuning in today. So, I want to talk some more about this war inside of Ukraine and the topic of this war potentially coming to an end soon. This is something we've been talking a lot about today, and I want to discuss this some more. And we're actually going to talk about a meeting that was held today in Brussels, Belgium, the 26th Ukraine Defense Contact Group meeting. Okay, and this was a meeting with top defense ministers from multiple NATO nations. And this gentleman that you see here on your screen, his name is Pete Hegseth. He's the defense secretary for the United States. And you can see here on your screen, U.S. Defense Secretary rules out NATO membership for Ukraine. And he also said that NATO membership for Ukraine is unrealistic, claiming Europe is responsible for protecting the war-torn nation and its borders. Okay, so I want to talk about some of the things that Pete Hegseth was actually bringing up during this meeting today. And I think this gives us a good idea and like a bird's eye view of the situation here of how the United States feels about this war, how much they want to be involved in ending it, how much they want to be involved in the end whenever this war is actually over with. I want to kind of talk about that today, and I've got a couple things I can show you guys here. So we're actually going to jump over to a mainstream news article. We're going to talk more about some of the statements that Pete Hegseth, the U.S. Defense Secretary, was mentioning today at this conference meeting, okay? So you can see here from CNN Politics, Hegseth rules out NATO membership for Ukraine and says Europe must be responsible for country's security. Okay, so just that statement right there alone is very big. I mean, we know that Ukraine has been pushing so hard to get into NATO recently, and it looks like that is being ruled out, at least in terms of the United States. They're claiming they do not want Ukraine. They do not want them to join NATO. And we know that's a huge demand from the Russian side as well. And most likely, if they were to come out and say, hey, Ukraine can join NATO, we probably would not see this war end, is what I'm thinking. As we have heard multiple times from Russia, they will not allow Ukraine to join NATO. Okay, so let's go over this article real quick, just a few paragraphs. We're not going to go over the whole thing, but this just coming out today, February 12th, 2025. Here's Pete Hegseth as he was attending this meeting today. And it says here, U.S. Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth, said on Wednesday that the war between Ukraine and Russia must end, that Kiev joining NATO is unrealistic, and that the U.S. will no longer prioritize European and Ukrainian security as the Trump administration shifts its attention to securing the U.S.'s own borders and deterring war with China. In remarks before a meeting of the Ukraine Defense Contact Group, Hegseth also said that European troops should be the primary force securing a post-war Ukraine, something U.S. troops will not be involved in, he added. The United States does not believe that NATO membership for Ukraine is a realistic outcome of a negotiated settlement, Hegseth said, and he added that any security guarantees offered to Ukraine must be backed by capable European and non-European troops, okay? So this is big right here, okay? So that means that let's say that a demilitarized zone gets created inside of Ukraine, the front line freezes, and NATO troops would be deployed over there. I think he did also mention that this would have to be a non-NATO force that would be sent into Ukraine, but the U.S. would have absolutely nothing to do with this. They do not want to deploy their own troops to Ukraine, that this would be Europe's job to protect Ukraine and fulfill the duties of sending in this peacekeeping force if they're going to do that. So this will be nothing to do with the U.S., okay? And it says here, to be clear, as part of any security guarantee, there will not be U.S. troops deployed to Ukraine, he said. Hegseth also said that a return to Ukraine's pre-2014 borders before Russia invaded Crimea and eastern Ukraine is an unrealistic objective. Okay, that's a pretty big statement as well. That's talking about Crimea and Ukraine getting it back. That he's claiming that this is an unrealistic objective, that it's most likely not going to ever happen. So in a way, I guess how some people might interpret this is Ukraine just needs to give up the land that's already been lost to them and kind of move on, is sort of how I see this. I mean, you guys can let me know what you're thinking behind these kind of statements, but that's kind of how I see this, okay? Many NATO allies would actually agree with Hegseth that getting Crimea back from Russia is not realistic, and not even Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has insisted on that as a precursor to peace talks. One NATO official said it would have been more concerning if Hegseth had said that returning to Ukraine's pre-2022 borders was unrealistic. But the comments about security guarantees are sure to concern Zelensky, who said this week that Europe alone cannot provide meaningful security guarantees to Ukraine without American leadership. Zelensky also continued to insist that his country joining NATO is the only way to deter Russia from launching new attacks in the future. So yeah, I'm sure Zelensky is worried about that right now. I mean, I know, like I said earlier, they're trying really hard to get into NATO, and it doesn't look like that's going to happen. So, what is Ukraine going to receive in terms of security guarantees? Are they going to get security guarantees from other countries to maybe come and back them if they come under attack in the future? That way, other European nations would have to come to their aid if they are attacked, or is Ukraine just going to get beefed up militarily, give them lots of missiles and weapons, bombs, whatever, aircraft, whatever it might be, to deter Russia from ever attacking them again? I guess there's so many scenarios that could really happen here, but it remains to be seen what's actually going to happen. But although we're hearing kind of bad news in regards to Ukraine, I did find something good here. Wanted to share this with you guys from Max 24. Ukraine received very powerful aid packages following the Ramstein meeting in Brussels, as well as assurances from partners of support not only in 2025 but also in the following years, according to Defense Minister Rustem Umerov. Okay, he's out of Ukraine. So I guess that is good news right there. They did get very good aid packages. We don't know what the aid packages entail just yet. But yeah, apparently that's some good news. I mean, if Ukraine gets some heavy weaponry, that should probably help them feel a little bit safer to potentially, ward off another attack in the future from Russia. But I think a big one here is going to be security guarantees from individual nations, maybe in Europe, maybe even not necessarily just NATO nations, but most likely NATO nations would be the ones to do that. So I'm not sure how they're going to work that out yet. But one last thing I want to share with you guys that I was thinking about personally, and I wanted to just kind of show you this real quick. Do you guys remember this story that came out a few months back from Politico? Zelensky, we need NATO or nukes, and we want NATO. Ukraine suffered uniquely from its 1994 decision to denuclearize, the country's president said. Okay, and the reason why I'm bringing this up is could this be another option that Ukraine decides to take down the road, is trying to pursue nuclear weapons? And, I'm not saying that the United States or some other country would give them nukes. I don't think that would be likely to happen. But there has been some talk that Ukraine could try to produce some, or at least like dirty bombs or something. I'm not sure if that was a confirmed report at some point, but there was some talk about that in the past. But it makes me wonder if Zelensky could start pushing the country towards developing nuclear weapons or obtaining them somehow. And I wouldn't be surprised if we start hearing talks about that, whether that actually becomes a thing or not. But it was just something that I thought about in terms of this. But it's definitely going to get very interesting over here. There's so many really questions to ask, and what could, so many different scenarios that could unfold from this situation as well. But based on what I'm seeing right now, it looks like Ukraine is not going to get as much support from the United States moving forward. They might get some weaponry for an extended period of time in exchange for minerals inside of Ukraine. We've heard about that. There's probably going to be potentially up to 500 billion worth of rare earth minerals, or just minerals in general, coming out of Ukraine that might fund a lot of heavy weapons coming from the United States. But aside from that, it looks like when this war comes to an end, the US wants nothing to do with the situation, and they're completely leaving it up to Europe. But you guys can let me know what you think down below. Drum up some conversation in the comment section and let us know what you're thinking about this. Do you agree with some of the statements here by Pete Hegseth? Do you think that Ukraine should continue to get more support from the United States and maybe be involved post-war after this war comes to an end, or what's going to happen? But let me know what you're all thinking down below. I'm curious to know how you feel about this. But that's going to be it for today's update. If you got something out of this, please smash that like button. Also, if you enjoy my content, please consider subscribing down below. Hit the notification bell. That way YouTube can notify you. And with that, hope you all have a great day. Everybody take care and God bless. And we'll see you in the next one.